If David Letterman had ever made a top 10 list of his favorite casseroles, I think this would have been at number 1. It's pastitsio. It's a beautiful Greek casserole with noodles, 2 sauces, and it's so amazing to make and even better to eat. And let's start off with the meat sauce. We are using ground beef. You can find different grades of beef, and we want a very lean beef. This is 93% lean. And that's because pastitsio is really, really rich. So in this bowl here, I have a tablespoon of water. We just need a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and that helps meat to hang on to its moisture and also keeps it nice and tender as it cooks. And 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. Just using table salt here because it's going to dissolve very quickly. Good enough. All right, so again, this is 93% lean beef. This is only 8 ounces. That's all we're gonna need for this casserole. Just plop that right in there. So we're just tossing this, breaking it up a little bit, make sure that the solution is covering all of the meat. Don't need to go crazy here. I'm gonna set this aside. All right, so let's start cooking. Got a medium saucepan here. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of vegetable oil. I'm going to turn this to medium heat. We want that oil to just start to shimmer. I need a 1/2 cup of finely chopped onion. I'll probably only use about half of this onion. So to finely mince, basically it's just like chopping, but you're making your cuts about 1/8 of an inch apart. And then I'm going to make my vertical cuts and then right across. And then any big pieces, I'm just going to rock my knife back and forth. All right, so that looks pretty good. This is going to go into the saucepan. We're going to cook this until the onions are just softened. We're not really looking for a lot of color. That's going to take about 3 minutes. And while those onions are cooking, I'm going to go get my garlic. I like to buy pre-peeled garlic in bulk, and then I freeze them. That way they can last a long, long time. I only need 3 right now, and I'm going to let these soften for just a few seconds while I work on the spices. And I'm going to pre-measure these because we're going to add them to the saucepan all at the same time. So let's start off with a teaspoon of dried oregano and paprika. A teaspoon of this. This is just regular paprika, not the smoked or the hot. Now we've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And let me grab my pepper here. So I'll always grind a little bit ahead of time and just keep it right in this ramekin. I'm going to use 1/8 a teaspoon of pepper as well. All right, now here's where the Greek flavors really come in. We're going to use 1 1/4 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Cinnamon is what gives this that really warm flavor, and you'll find it in a lot of Greek dishes, but it is amazing here. I love that they use this spice not only for sweet, but for savory foods. And then finally, mint. Now this is dried mint, which is spearmint. You don't want to use peppermint. It's really hard to find dried peppermint in the first place. But if you did, you wouldn't want to use it here. Spearmint is really what you want to use. They're very different flavors. And we need a teaspoon of that. All right, you know that this is going to taste amazing. So now let's get back to that garlic. These have softened up just a little bit. I'm going to use a rasp grater to grate the garlic. And you can do that usually anytime that you want to mince garlic or if you're going to put it through a press. I like to grate frozen, slightly softened garlic. All right, best part of grating garlic is the wham. And then all that goes right into the spices. Okay, so let's take a look at the onions. They soften just a little bit. Again, we're not looking for a lot of color. So now the garlic and the spices are all going to go in at the same time. Cook this for about 1 minute, maybe up to 2 minutes until it gets really fragrant. Now, some tomato sauces will use quite a bit of red wine. This actually only uses a 1/4 cup, and you want to use a red wine that you would enjoy drinking. A Pinot Noir or something like that is perfect. So now we're going to add that 1/4 cup of red wine. We're going to cook this until it's reduced and the whole mixture gets quite thick. It's going to take about 3 minutes. All right, now we're going to add tomato paste. This is a 1/3 cup of tomato paste. Then we're going to add the meat mixture here. Great. And a 1/2 cup of water. It doesn't look very good right now. That is accurate. All this is going to come together. Break up the meat into very small pieces as much as possible. That is now simmering. We're going to turn this down to low. I'll put the lid on. We're going to let this cook until all those flavors melt. That'll take about 30 minutes. All right, let's check this. It's been a half an hour, and it has changed in appearance. A lot of that liquid has evaporated. We want the sauce to be quite tight so that when we layer it in the dish, it'll stay in one nice layer. Now, you can make this up to 3 days in advance and keep it in your fridge. So I'm going to cover this, slide it off heat. Now, pastitsio is topped with bechamel, and bechamel is also used to bind that pasta layer. We're going to start off with a little bit of butter. We've got 2 tablespoons. Goes right into a saucepan, and we'll put this over medium heat. While that's melting, we need 2 tablespoons all-purpose flour, a little bit of table salt. We've got a half a teaspoon grated nutmeg. This is another one of those warm spices that really makes this dish special. So I'm going to use a rasp grater, and I need about a 1/4 teaspoon. I like to use whole nutmeg. I don't like the pre-ground nutmeg. I don't know what they put in there, but it doesn't taste like nutmeg. There we go. And a little bit of black pepper. This is 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I've got my garlic back out again. This was frozen. It's thawed a little bit on the counter. Again, just using the rasp grater. Make quick work out of that garlic clove. I'm going to add that in there. All right, so let's check out our saucepan. The butter is just about melted. That looks great. So I'm going to add in the flour mixture, those seasonings. There we go. I'll cook this for about a minute. We're not looking for really any color change here. We just want to get rid of the raw flour flavor. Now, this is a basic roux here. We've got equal parts fat and flour. And a good thing to know with roux is that the darker that it gets, you're going to get a lot more flavor, but it starts to lose its thickening power. So again, we're just looking to cook off the raw flavor. That smells amazing. Just a little bit toasty. Don't want to take it much farther than that. And now I'm going to whisk in our dairy. This is 4 cups of whole milk. Start off slowly, and then once you've whisked quite a bit in, you can add the rest much quicker. All right, that's looking good. Now we're going to bring this up to a simmer, and then while that's heating up, I'm going to weigh some pasta. I want to use 8 ounces of ziti. Now, typically with pastitsio, you might find recipes call for Greek #2 macaroni. That's actually the shape. It's a long, tubular piece of pasta. It can be a little hard to find. If you can find it, great. It works here really well. But if you can't find it, ziti is perfect. All right, we've got some bubbling going on here. Let's just give it a quick whisk, and then I'm going to add the pasta right into the bechamel. So we don't even need to cook it separately. Let me stir that in, and I want this to come back up to a simmer. Now, the great thing about this is, of course, it saves time. I don't have to cook the pasta separately. But some of that starch from the pasta is going to help to thicken the bechamel. So in the meantime, we can grate some cheese. And we are using casserole cheese. Now, this is a sheep's milk cheese. Sometimes it's cow's milk, sometimes it's goat's milk. But it has a really beautiful, nutty, and tangy flavor. So this is 4 ounces. That equals about a cup of grated cheese. But if you can't find casserole cheese, you can use a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts provolone to 1 part pecorino romano. Again, it's got to have that nice sheepy flavor. There we go. Let's take a look at our mixture here. It's just about coming up to a simmer. You actually just want to stir it so that the pasta isn't sticking at this point. I'm going to turn the heat off, put the lid on, and we're going to let that pasta cook in that hot mixture for about 15 minutes. Let's take a look in here. Again, the pasta wasn't simmering in there, just kind of steeping in there. And it's just slightly softened, and that's perfect. Again, we don't want to overcook it at this point because it's going to continue to cook in the dish. I'm going to transfer this now to an 8-inch baking dish. And I've gone ahead and sprayed this with vegetable oil cooking spray. I'm leaving that bechamel behind in the saucepan here, but there's still a little bit on the pasta that's going to help to make it nice and cohesive. All right, I think I got all the ziti at this point. So now I'm going to add a little bit of that casserole cheese. Again, this was a cup total, so I'm going to add a 1/3 cup. Just sprinkle it right over the pasta here. And then toss this just so that the cheese starts to melt a little bit. All right, and now, speaking of meat sauce, I'm just going to dollop it over the top. So you can see why we wanted this to have a nice, tight texture. It's a very cohesive sauce. I'll use the spatula just to spread that into an even layer. Looking good. Now, before I add the bechamel, I'm going to add in 1/3 more of the cheese, and I will whisk that in. This is going to help to tighten the bechamel as well as making it just really cheesy and delicious. And then I'm going to add one more ingredient. 1 egg, and I'll beat it a little bit here. That's going to help to tighten the bechamel even further. You gotta be quick about that though. You don't want any scrambled eggs in your bechamel. So we have our noodles, we have the layer of the meat sauce. Let's get that bechamel on there. Oh yeah, nice big layer. 1 more layer of cheese, because why not? So again, this is the remaining 1/3 cup of casserole cheese. Beautiful. Now you can see how far up in the pan this is, and that probably explains why I'm baking it on a rimmed baking sheet. This is going to go into a 375-degree oven. It's going to stay in there between 40 and 50 minutes. I'm going to look for that top to get very brown. Oh, look at that. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right, I'm going to put it right here. Gorgeous. Bubbling. So obviously, I'm not going to tuck into this right away. I'm going to let this sit for 20 minutes, let it cool down, and also I want all of those layers to become more cohesive. As promised, 20 minutes, and look how nice and cool it is. It's still hot inside, believe me, but it's cool enough to cut. That looks just about good enough to eat. Oh, you can see that layer of bechamel there, and then the meat sauce, and of course, we have all that ziti underneath. I'm gonna make sure I get a bite with everything on it. Oh my gosh. It is so supple and it's rich without being too fatty. Now I've heard that you can keep leftovers of this, but I've never come across any. This is absolutely amazing. And remember the keys to making pastitsio at home: soak the beef with baking soda, use ziti, and cook the ziti in the bechamel. So from America's Test Kitchen at home, an Olympian-worthy pastitsio.
Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.